Black Lives Matter. Is it about social justice or dominance? In our last video of this series, we looked into the absurdity of rioting and exposed the political agitators behind the scenes wreaking the most havoc. But the havoc includes Black Lives Matter. Today we will discuss the aggression behind this movement and how the left has continued to weaponize their anger, resentment, and dysfunction. One aspect of Black Lives Matter that I would like to address is how the phrase itself has been polarized in this nation. This has led many to believe that if they don't get behind the movement, they are either a racist or a racist sympathizer. That in order to oppose injustice, one must support this movement, and this is false. There is a difference between kowtowing to a politically mobilized movement and wanting to support a culture's desire to thrive. It's time to face an obvious fact. This ceased being about George Floyd a long time ago.
You turn on the television and there's a giant funeral, a giant memorial for George Floyd. Celebrities and politicians all there. The same people for the past couple months who were telling you if you were to go into a group of people, you could have died because of COVID-19. And here they sit at this giant funeral. A funeral in which George Floyd probably only knew 1/3 of the people actually there. A funeral in which became political. Al Sharpton was up there saying, we're going to take the White House. George Floyd's funeral became political. 2 to 3 days after that man was murdered, they told you to go vote. A week after that man was murdered, first day of primaries. And what did you do? You went out and voted. Blue, 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 just like the script told you to. Hashtag vote, 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 all over Instagram, all over Twitter. Everybody, vote, 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 vote. Why? Have you asked yourself why? What is voting going to do? We had a black president and this still happened. You think voting is going to solve racism? You're being used. You think they broadcasted George Floyd's funeral all to America because they wanted to show what a great person George Floyd was? Or do you think they broadcasted George Floyd's funeral because they wanted you to watch? So you would get angry, you would get sad, you would get mad, you would get frustrated, and you would go vote.
Who is Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter started as a hashtag in 2013 and quickly turned into a movement after the acquittal of George Zimmerman in the Trayvon Martin murder trial. They rose to national prominence over the Michael Brown protest in Ferguson, Missouri, and Eric Garner protest in New York City. Let's move on to the list of their demands. Demand number 1, end the war on black people. They call for an end to the war on black people by calling for an end to criminalization and incarceration and the killing of black people. Demand number 2, reparations. Reparations is the payment of cash or other benefits for the act of slavery. Demand number 3, divest, invest. They demand investment in education, health, and safety instead of the investment of caging and harming black people. Demand number 4, economic justice. A reconstruction of the economy to ensure black communities have collective ownership. Demand number 5, community control. They demand a world where those impacted in black communities control the institutions and policies of the law that are meant to serve them. Demand number 6, political power. They demand independent black political power and black self-determination in all areas of society. They envision the remaking of our current U.S. political system in order to create a real democracy, where black people and all marginalized people can effectively exercise full political power. Any further demands, and we are now embracing a full-blown set of socialism. Politicians want to harness the power of this movement for their own personal gain, as usual. The problem? This isn't your status quo level of politics. This group is too disjointed, and the radical elements will swallow any politician wanting to ride this wave of political extremism.
We don't want no more police. Is that clear? We don't want people with guns toting around in our community, shooting us down. You have an answer? It is a yes or a no. It is a yes or a no. Will you defund the Minneapolis Police Department? All right, be quiet, y'all. Be quiet, because it's important that we actually hear this. It's important that we hear this, because if y'all don't know, he's up for re-election next year. If y'all don't know, he's up for re-election next year. And if he says no, guess what the we gonna do next year?
Loud and clear.
Louder.
Yeah.
I do not support the full abolition.
All right.
Back in 2015, I stated how Black Lives Matter was yet another ground truth movement for the left to use against the opposition. Have you noticed how no one ever hears about Black Lives Matter until it's time for an election? It's frustrating to watch pain and resentment be used for gain, and then put back on the shelf until another time, like unused arsenal in political weaponry.
We have a state action against our police department, which gives us legal mechanisms in the very short term. You know, there's lessons from all over the country, all over the world that we're looking to take immediate steps while we work toward building the systems that we would need to imagine that future.
Do you understand that the word dismantle or police free also makes some people nervous? For instance, what if in the middle of the night my home is broken into? Who do I call?
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
Black Lives Matter is no different than the Me Too movement, which was also weaponized. I firmly believe that Black America should be heard, like any other culture in this nation. But it will not happen until they have realized they're being used. Democrats thrive in the presence of crisis and victims. And where there isn't one, it can be created. Saviors remain the heroes in their own stories as long as the crisis remains. What can you do? The first and most important thing is to pray for your city and state leaders. In a time where political will is being pushed through political bullying, our leaders need to know the difference between what is truth and what is not. Locate and pray for the true peacemakers. We have come to know men and women that carry a passion to bridge the gap between worlds across society. They have a voice, and their voices are needed in this time. Find them. The third is to share this video. If you want to see our message spread, you can help us by sharing our content. In conclusion, I've noticed something distinct about Black Lives Matter. Their website only supports victims that have been shot by law enforcement or affected by law enforcement. And there is no mention of the hundreds, even thousands, that have been killed unjustly in Black communities across this nation. Here are some questions. If Black Lives Matter, why do you allow the destruction of your own communities again and again when you know who will ultimately pay the price? Will any of the corporate funding that you're receiving go to rebuilding what no longer exists in your neighborhoods? Why do you not protest one of the largest perpetrators of racial injustice, Planned Parenthood, or as they were known in the beginning, the Negro Project? And lastly, what happens after the protest is over and thousands of Black Americans return back to the hell they reside in, where Democrats have led for decades? This is why we do what we do. We speak out against racism in America every single day as conservatives. The question is anyone listening? Time will tell. And we'll still be here.
But I read in the papers all week, we all read in the papers, that in the black community, mothers are worried about their children getting home from school without being killed by a cop. What world are we living in? That doesn't happen. It does not happen. I am not Derek Chauvin. They are not him. He killed someone. We didn't. We are restrained. And you know what? I'm saying this to all the cops here. Because you know what? Everybody's trying to shame us. The legislators, the press, everybody's trying to shame us into being embarrassed about our profession. Well, you know what? This isn't stained by someone in Minneapolis. It's still got a shine on it. And so do theirs. So do theirs.